Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. Today is Friday, the 3rd of February, 2023, and these are the stories that we will be discussing in detail in the course of the show. We will begin with the resolve of Pakistan and its government to stand in line with the Kashmiri brethren to promote their right to self-determination. This has been said by our Premier Shehbaz Sharif Saab in a meeting that was held yesterday. He has reaffirmed Pakistan's unwavering support to the Kashmiri brethren in their just struggle for achieving their right to self-determination. With the Kashmir Solidarity Day also 2 days away, Pakistan's resolve is unflinching, whether it be on the political front, moral front, or diplomatic front. Pakistan has always highlighted the Kashmir cause and for the just resolution of the people who are, of course, seeing and observing the different kind of brutalities under the BJP regime. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Pakistan requesting Kabul to act against terrorists and terrorist sanctuaries in Afghanistan. This was said by the Foreign Office spokesperson yesterday, who asked the interim Afghan government to take concrete actions against the terrorist outfits, including the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan that is operating, of course, outside of the country. We've discussed many times before that as well. And this is all in the wake of the deadly terrorist attack that happened in the mosque in the civil lines in the red zone area of Peshawar. Also, the fact remains that there is a response that came from Mr. Amir Muttaqi, but what of that response? Because this is what the Foreign Office spokesperson also responded to. That was the comment made by Mr. Amir Muttaqi. This is going to be our second story. And our last story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns a Chinese spy balloon that has been flying over the United States for a couple of days. This has been stated by a couple of US officials, and this is just days ahead of a planned trip to Beijing by Joe Biden. In fact, not by Joe Biden, by US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. The fact remains that this creates a lot of question marks. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson has also said that she's looking into it and she will give a response as far as this is concerned. Nevertheless, this remains a question mark. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the Kashmir Solidarity Day that is going to be held on Sunday. Nevertheless, Pakistan stands in solidarity with its Kashmir brethren 365 days, over 365, for their right to self-determination. Our Premier Shehbaz Sharif has also said that during a meeting that was held yesterday of Pakistan's unflinching, of course, response and his unflinching support and unwavering support to the Kashmiri brethren in their just right to self-determination. More in the following report.
Pakistan observes Kashmir Solidarity Day every year to express our unwavering political, moral and diplomatic support to the just struggle of our Kashmiri brethren for their right of self-determination as enshrined in the UN Charter and the relevant UN resolutions. The preparations for observing Kashmir Solidarity Day have started across the world by arranging a number of activities to show solidarity with the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir in their just and principled struggle. The day is marked by public processions, special prayers in mosques for the liberation of Kashmir and protests and rallies that are carried out against the Indian oppression of IIOJK. Apart from massive human rights violations by Indian security forces, the occupied valley is in a state of constant siege and surveillance, while Indian forces and RSS militants are free to kill, torture and arrest any innocent Kashmiri. The Kashmiri leadership has been put into jails or else under house arrest, where the masses are facing the situation of an open prison in an extreme cold winter where there is a freezing temperature in the valley. Thousands of Kashmiris have been killed and injured since August the 5th, 2019. Besides, thousands of youth have been taken to torture centers and prisons outside the state boundaries in various parts of India. Unfortunately, there is no response from the international community over Indian occupation, and India is taking advantage of this international silence.
Altaf Hussain, Wani Kashmiri leader, joins us online. Wani Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Wani Saab, with the Kashmir Solidarity Day just 48 hours away and Pakistan's unflinching and unwavering support to its Kashmiri brethren, as has been enunciated by our Premier and also by other leaders, and this is not the first time. We always want to support and have been supporting the people of illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir on the moral, political and diplomatic front. How can Pakistan move forward when you see the response that comes from the West as far as these brutalities are concerned?
Thank you, Barsab. First of all, it's a matter of pleasure that Pakistan has been observing the solidarity with the people of Kashmir uh, over last 75 years, almost to the day which will mark after 24 4 hours, 72 hours later, is just a symbol of that solidarity. On this day, we organize the people in Pakistan and abroad organize seminars, awareness programs to create more and more awareness about the Indian occupation in occupied Kashmir and the brutalities that Indian occupying forces are carrying out in that occupied territory. It's good that Pakistan has once again, the government of Pakistan and the people of Pakistan are showing to the international community as well as to the India that people of Kashmir are not alone in their struggle against their occupation. So the people of Pakistan stand by them in their struggle. They support them morally, they support them diplomatically, and they are always with them and do feel their sufferings. So, how will world come? That's why now we have seen the realization around the international community. There is a realization that two parts of the international community. One is the civil society, and the other are the governments. In the civil society, there is overall realization that Indian government, which is a fascist government, which is run by Hindu elements, that is carrying an ethnic cleansing of the Kashmiri Muslims in Indian-occupied Kashmir, not only in Indian-occupied Kashmir, but also in India. The ethnic cleansing of Muslims has started. As we know, the Genocide Watch already has sent alerts about that genocide is happening in Kashmir. And the brutalities, the kind of brutalities we are facing in the current phase is now it has manifolded. That on one hand we had extrajudicial executioners, we have enforced disappearances, we have torture of people day in and day out. But now the Indian government is also
Confiscation of properties of lands owned by the people
yeah.
of Kashmir.
Yeah, they are not destroying the properties. They are confiscating the lands. They are confiscating the properties of the people in occupied Kashmir who have raised the voice against the occupation, who are resisting against this occupation. This is happening there, and they have silent all the media in occupied Kashmir. But you see, now they have crossed the boundaries now. The people of Indian occupied Kashmir who are in overseas, who raise the voice for the people of Kashmir on social media, on electronic media, or write for the Kashmir, or arrange seminars, gatherings around the globe. Those people are also being implicated by the government of India. The FIRs have been registered against them, and they have been charged under the UAPA. And some of the Kashmiris in the overseas are facing the danger of losing their citizenship, overseas citizenships, because of these Indian brutality, Indian tactics which India is carrying out. So it's time. I think international community, when we talk of the international community, I mean the governments, the international governments will have to think over it. They cannot keep this criminal silence for long because they have seen this, that the way the India projected India as a credible India for a long time, and they gave the kind of impunity to the Narendra Modi. But now the Modi question 1 and 2, which BBC documentary shows how Modi was responsible for the killings in Gujarat.
But you
He
know, the
was
fact remains, Altaf Hussain Wani Sahab, the fact remains that despite this BBC2 documentary that has alerted the world on what Narendra Modi was and is and will continue to be, the Indians are denied of the right to watch the documentary. It has been banned more or less everywhere in the Indian territories. What about the Indian people? What about their cognizance or their understanding of what the Indian government under the BJP rule is doing to the minorities, especially the Muslims and especially those in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
You see, the people in India, the San voices in India have also been crushed. The minorities have been crushed, and along with them, those who used to raise the voice for the people of Indian occupied Kashmir, the brutalities they were facing, or even the human rights violations which are carried out in throughout India, discrimination against minorities, discrimination against Dalits, and all these things. Those people have been put behind the bars. Many of those activists lost their lives in the prisoners. You know Gautam Naulakha, a very sane voice of India, who always used to talk about Kashmir, talk about the rights of the people in India. He is behind the bars, although he has multiple ailments, but still then he is languishing behind the bars, and so are the most of the rights activists in India who are behind the bars. So what India did currently, now the whole world came to know how arrogant the Indian government is, how they have banned this BBC documentary in India, though the people, the students around the India gathered and they used VPN and other things. They watched this documentary, but the government of India's attempts to stop all this and not to show the people of India, but people of India know it. Unfortunately, society has been taken over by these Hindu Tagoons. They are ruling each and every organ of the state. That is why they are suppressed all those voices, be those the minorities in India, or the people of Indian occupied Kashmir, or the saner voices or the secular voices of India. They have been suppressed.
Now, Altaf said, Wani Sahib, if we look at the facts and figures as far as the women, the children, the youth, the incarcerations, the murders, the torture, the rape is concerned, the list goes on and on. It's endless. We've talked about the facts and figures, but what I would also like to highlight here is the amount of torture that is done on the children in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, how they are put into jail as well. What in the Indian government under the BJP is doing is completely not only defacing but demoralizing and denying the right for the future generations of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the right to live their lives in freedom, the right to live their lives under the basic human rights. If the children are undergo such torture, what about the adults? What about the women? And what measures need to be taken by the international human rights organizations under the current ambit of the BJP government that is perpetrating such atrocities?
You see, when we talk about the children, the children below age of 16, around 900 children have been killed by the Indian forces during last 33 years. These are very small children who are killed. If you talk about the youth, to the age of 25, the number goes in thousands that have been killed. And similarly, when the Indian government abrogated Article 370 and 35A, on that very day, on the first day, 13,000 people were arrested, and most of them were the young people below the age of 16 or 18. They were young people. What Indian government is trying to do, on one hand, they are killing the younger generation through use of brute force, through bullets, through pellets, and all these things. And the other hand, putting them behind the bars and also taking them to concentration camps to make them to Indianize them, so that they can they are taught.
And to make them live in fear, Wani Saab, this is very important, living in fear. If children are living in fear, how can they grow up to be proper and normal adults?
Yeah, that is what the UN report has also said, that the UN special rapporteur on the children, and even the UN Secretary General special report which came on the children last year, that report also spoke that Indian government is on one hand using the minors in Indian occupied Kashmir as mercenaries, as informers, or as human shields. In occupied Kashmir, and on the other hand, they are taking them to the detention centers, they are incarcerating them. So this is all being documented by international. But unfortunately, what you said, that what human rights organizations do, Human rights organizations have only the one mandate that they can only document things, they can name and shame. They are doing it. Unfortunately, neither Indian government allows them to come to the ground to document these things. The people who were documenting these things on the ground were the human rights defenders or journalists of Indian occupied Kashmir. All of them are facing this time sedition charges, be that the noted human rights defender of international acclaim, the Khurram Parvez, who is currently in incarceration in the Delhi's Tihar jail facing the sedition charges there. Though that human rights defender, Khurram Parvez, has been awarded the world's highest human rights award, and that will be conferred on him on the 14th of this February. But still then, Indian government is not ready to release him. All the human rights machinery of United Nations system has given alerts to the government of India to release him. Even the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders said Khurram is a human rights defender, not a terrorist. But he is not released. And this gives a message to the common man in Kashmir, the common mass in Kashmir, that you have seen in another documentary of BBC where the people talk to the BBC that we do not talk about these incidents at our home because each and everything is surveillance. On one hand, there is settler colonialism, physical settler colonialism on behalf of India. On the other hand, there is eco-settler colonialism that each and every voice is being censored, each and every voice is being monitored, and who speaks against them, who writes against Modi, and they face the consequences of it, and they are put behind bars there. And international watchdogs have raised alarm on it. They do, but unfortunately, the governments around the globe, they are still pursuing the policy, the strategic policy, their economic interests and all that. But, in coming days, we are seeing that the way Indian economy is going down from last 1 week, the way Modi's friends are losing the money and all that investment, that will have an consequence on the India and also to the international community. 9 billion lost to the Indian occupied Kashmir economy for last 3 years is something which we need to talk about, how the people of Kashmir are facing the economic crunch during these periods and what is happening to the commoners because of this economic crunch. Their land is being on one hand snatched, their jobs are being snatched, they are thrown out of the jobs, and on the other hand, in the name of encroachment drive, their properties are demolished and the lands are being taken away.
Vanisa, whether it be the economic crunch, whether it be the demolishing of properties or the confiscation of properties, whether it be the human rights abuses, the list goes on. Organizations like yours have been highlighting the case of illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir for quite some time now. You yourself have gone to different countries such as Geneva and others. You've met with the OIC Secretary General on various occasions and highlighted this. What is the global response when you talk to the leaders, when you talk to important decision makers? What is their response to highlighting all that is happening in the Indian held valley?
To be honest, and when we talk to the leaders, when we talk to there are two, I already told you, two types of leaders: one civil society leaders, or the political leaders, or the decision makers in the globe. When we talk about the civil society leaders or the UN systems, everybody is concerned about the Kashmir, and they have the realization, they have each and every figure, they know what India is doing, where Modi is going. When we talk to the political leadership or the leadership of the countries, they also have the realization that Kashmiris are facing a very bad situation over there, and the Indian government is not ready to think. But they have coined that rhetoric that we want that India and Pakistan should talk and in accordance with the people of Kashmir, and we will encourage dialogue and all that. But they forget that it is Modi who is not ready to talk. There is nothing to talk with the Modi. Modi says, whatever I say, that is final. Modi is not ready to talk to anybody. This needs, the international community needs to understand this. And we have been telling to the people that this is not the government, that government of India, where you can expect anything from talks, because Modi has straight away, the way they took the unilateral action in Indian occupied Kashmir, stepping Article 370, 35A, then making the laws like CAA and National Registration Act in India, thereby making lives of the minorities miserable in India. But people still think that something good will happen to the Modi and he will come to the terms, but he is not. Now there is time. I think we need to alarm the world, and also I think our Foreign Office has a responsibility to alarm it, although they are alarming
But the Foreign
it.
Office has been doing it for quite some time as well. You know that for a fact, Altaf and Wani Sahab.
Yeah.
Final question, Wani Sahab, what kind of pressure is needed on India for it to change its tactics towards Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and maybe reverse its laws and of course put the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir back to its original state pre-February 5, 2019?
You see, firstly, the people of Kashmir till date, India has, although through laws, through manipulations, through all these things in book, they have changed everything. In books, they have changed everything. But when it comes to the ground, they are using the brute force to change those things. But they are facing a tough resistance from the people of Indian occupied Kashmir. The people of Kashmir are resilient. They will continue to resist that. What needs to be done is that what we are doing, we are creating awareness around the globe. We are talking to the world, and we have to take to the world the facts which the people in Indian occupied Kashmir have written. Now, we don't have Kuram Parvez there, but we have a book from Anuradha Bhasin, the Kashmir, the dismantled state. You take that book to the world, you take reviews on that, the people will come to know what India is. Khalid Bashir's book is another example of there. So there is wealth of information which we need to take to the international audience, so that international audience will come to know the true perspective of India, that India is not that India what they see in Bollywood, what they see through IPL and other things. India is something, or through they see the India through the lenses of the.
They need to see India through the lens of the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. They need to see India through the lens of the Muslims, the Christians, the Dalits and the Sikhs that are subjected to torture and barbarities by the Indian government. Thank you very much, Altaf Hussain Wani Sahab, Kashmir leader, to have joined us and talked to us about the reaffirmation from the Pakistani side to continue their unwavering support for the just cause to their right to self-determination. And this Pakistan will continue to do. It has been doing and it will continue to do. And we will stand side by side with our Kashmiri brethren on the 5th, that is the day after tomorrow, on the Kashmir Solidarity Day, the day when Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir's special status was changed. Let's come to our second story, and that concerns another alarming situation that is because of the infiltration of terrorist outfits from Afghanistan into Pakistan. Now, the Foreign Office spokesperson says that Kabul needs to act against terrorists and terrorist sanctuaries in Afghanistan. Amir Muttaqi, the interim foreign minister, has said that there is no involvement of Afghanistan and Pakistan needs to look inwards, but the true facts and figures say otherwise. More in the following report.
Terrorism is a common threat to both Pakistan and Afghanistan. Pakistan expects sincere cooperation from the Afghan interim government to address the challenge of terrorism and hopes that Afghanistan will live up its commitments made with the international community and Pakistan in this regard. Foreign Office reiterated that no country should allow its territory to be used for perpetrating terrorism against Pakistan. It is time that the commitments made to the world are fulfilled with sincerity and in good faith actions. January was the deadliest month since 2018, in which 134 people lost their lives, 139 spiked, and 254 received injuries, and at least 44 militant attacks across the country. According to ISPR, security forces killed 2 terrorists during an exchange of fire in Isham area of North Waziristan district. The ISPR statement added that the incident re-vindicates Pakistan Army's resolve to have zero tolerance for terrorism in Pakistan and reaffirms its determination to take on any and all entities that resort to violence. Pakistan has been consistently playing a constructive role for peaceful Afghanistan and always advocated joint resolve against terrorism.
Sangeen Panezai, who's an analyst, joins us in the studio for this very important segment. Sangeen, thank you very much to have joined us. Sangeen, Foreign Office statement again reiterates that fact that Pakistan needs answers from Afghanistan. Will it get those answers, despite the fact that Amir Muttaqi, the interim foreign minister, says otherwise, that Pakistan needs to look inwards and that Afghanistan is more or less not involved?
First of all, thank you very much. I think that's not enough from the Afghan side, and it is their responsibility to address the Pakistan's questions. And it is not their, it is also responsibility of the international community, because being signatory to the international, as per the Doha agreement, Afghan.
Are they violating the Doha agreement?
Yes, they are. Under the agreement, under the Doha agreement, the Taliban were bound not to allow their land to be used against any country, specifically Pakistan, since Pakistan has suffered a lot, since Pakistan is a friendly country to Afghanistan. Pakistan has been, extending her, to the best possible, efforts to, facilitate Afghan Taliban. But I think it is their international obligation. They are signatory to the international agreement that they will not allow their land to be used against Pakistan. Now, what they are saying, that is the other way around. I think what they are saying in theory and what's happening in practice, it's all bizarre. I think Pakistan has a very genuine right to ask not only the Afghan government, and it is the equal responsibility of the international community as well to address those, the grievances, because it is very, because at this point of time, Pakistan, both civil and military leadership are very serious to,
And on one page, in fact, as far as that is concerned.
They are on one page, because last month National Security meeting, it reflected that, Pakistan considers these all terrorists, TTP, ISK, BLA, BRF, all these are the enemies of Pakistan, and they have zero space as far as the terrorism is concerned.
Now, another thing that is very important in this day, when we are subject to such terrorist activities from across the border, and we have incidents that are happening in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Balochistan, and in Punjab. We've seen what happened in Miawali as well. How important is, quote, what Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said when he calls on the national unity against terrorism, or else, quote unquote, the history will not forgive us. How important is a national consensus that all political parties, irrespective of their differences, come on the same page when it comes to combating terrorism?
Absolutely, he is absolutely right, because no second thought as far as the tackling terrorism is concerned, because national unity, national consensus is important. We need to have all stakeholders, be it civilian, law enforcement agencies, security establishment, all political parties, they should be on one boat in order to tackle. Because we have the point back in 2014 after the APS tragedy, all political parties on government, opposition, they came, that deliberated, they convened all party conference. Alhamdulillah, we defeated TTP after the inception of Operation Zarb-e-Azb. Then we had National Action Plan, then we had National Counter-Terrorism Authority and Radul Fasad. Now, we need to understand what were the root causes that led again the resurgence of terrorism. I think we have the best of the best policies in place. Where does the flaws lies? It lies in lack of implementation. I think we need to be very serious, and it is high time we put aside our political differences. I would really appreciate the those sitting on the opposition. They need to be very serious, because it's a matter of national security.
When you're talking of national security, Sangeen, you remember how our Defence Minister Khaja Asif Saab and Rana Sanaullah talked in the Parliament a few days back, and they made very passionate pleas, and they also said that there were certain quarters that were not reacting and protesting against what happened in Peshawar. There were a lot of voices that were mum. Why is that? You talk of political consensus about coming on the same page, but there are still some elements that do not want to come on the same page. What are the reasons behind that?
I think we need to understand, we need to come out of this blame game. If we really want to do politics for the people of Pakistan, it is high time, because it is the moment, as the Prime Minister has rightly mentioned, it is the moment of make or break. We need to put aside our political differences. We need to prioritize our national security interest. Now, at this point of time, national security interest lies to be on one page. I think all stakeholders, all political parties, all security agencies, they need to reflect a very categorical, a very candid response, so that it offers a very clear strategic direction to the enemies of Pakistan, that we remain determined. As far as the nation remains hopeful, nobody can defeat us. And what I expect, the people, people is expecting something very, strategic direction, and that is in the shape of full-fledged operation. I think, and I believe it will happen. We need to come out, change.
But there also needs to be a political consensus as far as that operation is concerned.
Without political consensus, nothing, you cannot achieve, your strategic goal. Yes, we have the best of the best military operations. Operation Radul Fasad, Operation Zarb-e-Azb, all plannings. But where does the flaw lies? Due to lack of political instability. We see, unfortunately, there is this political instability, societal polarization, economic collapse. So under these situations, if we are not united, so, the enemies will keep on exploiting. So
and they have been exploiting. We've seen what happened in Peshawar, what happened before that as well. What happened in Punjab, in Mianwali also is tantamount to the fact that we need to be on one page when it comes to these activities. Now, let's come to some statistics. The first is released by the Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies that says that January 2023 remained one of the deadliest months since July 2018. Isn't this a worrying trend? Don't you feel this is going to shape the security landscape of Pakistan this year? But how it all depends on the way the different organizations, whether it be the government or the establishment or the armed forces, shape it. How important is the reshaping of this security landscape of Pakistan so that Pakistan becomes more secure?
Absolutely, it offers a very grim picture, and it really demands us to change our fighting strategy from being defensive to being offensive. I think we have been more of the reactive rather than being reacting proactively. We need to show a strategic direction, and that could be, as you mentioned right on the onset, that could be achieved if we have the political stability. If we have political stability right there, all stakeholders could convey a very clear message that we are on one page, and I think full-fledged military kinetic operation is the only way to to dismantle the back of TTP, ISK, BLA, BRF and all that. And I'm very much sure as a nation, when it comes to terrorism, when it comes to any crisis, unity is the only response to shun away these terrorist organizations.
You talk of a kinetic operation against this, you mentioned parties, and it's strange because a report that was released by the Center for Research and Security Studies also called this terror triad, that is the TTP, the Daesh Pakistan and the BLA. When we talk of Pakistan's strategy to neutralize this so-called terror triad, is kinetic operation the only option? Do you feel we should also move in parallel with other societal operations, for example proper education of the people, also the religious leaders, the ulama, the Maulvis who are in the mosques should also take out sermons against all such activities? Don't you feel this should also happen?
Absolutely. Kinetic operation all alone is not the only way forward to tackle these challenges. I think it requires two-pronged strategy. First, kinetic ops, to tackle the the hardcore hardline, those elements who are those who cannot be reconcilable. I think that is the only way those should be dealt with the kinetic operation. As far as the reconcilable elements are concerned, yes, Pakistan is a state is just like a mother. Yes, it is the responsibility of the state, responsibility of the government to ensure effective governance, to ensure to cater education, to offer health facilities. Without that, you cannot achieve that. As mentioned earlier, military operations have been successful throughout the Pakistani history. The issue lies when it comes to the post-operational scenario, and that what breeds, that becomes the breeding ground for the terrorist organization. And I think it is high time we need to differentiate between what our strategic goals are. I think we need to be very clear: no good Taliban, no bad Taliban. What really matters for us, that is the only
exactly.
Pakistan.
And what is in favor of Pakistan, in favor of Pakistan's security and of course stability, that should be the main concern for all of Pakistan, irrespective of which sector or which sect or which service they belong to. Those elements that are backing this terror triad, don't you feel we need to cut the umbilical cord between them and this terror triad as well? Those countries that do not want Pakistan to be stabilized, and without naming them, we all know who they are. Don't you feel that Pakistan also needs to highlight this? We have highlighted in the past as well through facts, figures, through documents that we have shown to the international body. But what other mechanisms do you feel we need to employ to highlight this internationally, to highlight those elements, those international elements that are behind these terror outfits?
I think it is a challenge. For the very first time, we see this nexus, as you mentioned, the triad, ISK, TTP and BLA. So just see, the TTP is driven by ideological motivation. When it comes to the BLA, BLF, BRF,
this is something very interesting. You say ideological motivations. How can you be ideologically motivated when you are a Muslim and you kill Muslims? Which ideology is this? This is anti-religion. This ideology is
This is what
anti-religion.
they perceive. Absolutely, Islam do not allow violence. This is what they are using the name of Islam. You know, Islam is religion of peace. They are just under the disguise of Islam. They are doing that. Even recently, very importantly, scholars of more than thousands, they have condemned terrorism, and they have condemned these TTPs and all these elements, that in Islam there is zero space, zero room for these elements. As far as your question is concerned, how to tackle it, I think as mentioned, it needs the role of ulama ikram is very much important, role of our Islamic scholars. They need to come forward. I think they are doing a lot. They need to do more. I think for that we need to implement National Action Plan. And the National Action Plan is one of the effective plans.
Now, this is very interesting. National Action Plan. You know, the National Action Plan was made in 2014 after the APS attack. Something that we still remember, and what happened in the mosque in Peshawar brought back those dastardly memories of 2014. Do we need to further modify the National Action Plan, keeping in line with the latest trends that are adapted by the terror outfits?
I think if there is a neat room, we are, you know, strategy should be, you know, dynamic in its nature. It was a plan, very comprehensive plan. I think if I am very much convinced with the fact, if we are able to, you know, implement those 20 points of National Action Plan, that was one of the effective plans. The scholars, you know, or the strategic community officials, they, you know, deliberated day in and day out. That was one of the effective plans, you know, to tackle the terrorism. I think there is a space, you know, as far as madrasa reforms are concerned, as far as the apex committees are concerned. One of the important points that apex committees need to be, you know, held regular meetings. Unfortunately, that remained in fiasco. I think we need to, you know, figure out those mistakes. I've been, you know, I'm convinced with the fact we have best of the best policies. Issue lies when it comes to lack of political ownership. One party in government, they own it, the other criticize. I think we need to come out of this of political gimmick. We should consider it a matter of national security. Whether at any government, which should you know, take the ownership of this you know, operation, whether that is National Action Plan, whether that is NACTA, whether that is military operation, we should consider it as a national priority.
That is so true. A national priority should be a national priority, irrespective of whether you believe in the government or its governance or not. You need to come on one page when it comes to national priorities. Afghanistan, how should Pakistan tackle it? The Foreign Office spokesperson has downrightly said that Pakistan needs more answers from Afghanistan. Will Afghanistan give those answers in all truthfulness?
If Afghanistan do not answer those questions, I think they are, you know, hurting themselves. You know, if they really want international recognition, if they really want international legitimacy for their government, as of now, not a single government, not a single entity have recognized their government. So I think they are hurting themselves. Pakistan has the genuine right to ask those questions, that your land is being used against Pakistan. Now, recently I was, you know, reading a UN report. More than between 1,500 to 4,000 ISK terrorist groups are settled there. Even these ISK terrorists are, you know, posing threat to the Afghan Taliban government. So it is in their interest to, you know, to take decisive action against all TTP, ISK and all terrorist groups if they really want to, you know, gain international legitimacy, and it is in the favor of Afghan people as well. Pakistan deserves the right, and I think Pakistan need to be very calculated when dealing with the Afghan government, because diplomatic channels are the best ways to convince them, because we need to ensure Afghan government that terrorists are the common enemies of this region. Even whether that is with the regional actors, Russia, Iran, China, they have the common denominators that these terrorists are posing threat to the regional, you know, security environment. And the only way we can develop a regional consensus, I think one of the best, you know, forum, that is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, that offers one of the best ways to counter terrorism. As far as Pakistan is concerned, I think we need to be very cautious. We need to recalibrate our counter-terrorism strategy in order to tackle them at the earliest possible.
Now, the counter-terrorism strategy is interesting because a lot of countries have said that they want to collaborate with Pakistan on this strategy, whether it be the United States of America, whether it be China or other regional countries that are present here. How important is that collective counter-terrorism strategy in order to thwart all these elements?
It is very much important. Unfortunately, ever since the Russia-Ukraine war, the attention of the international community that shifted from the Afghanistan to Europe. Obviously, that is a international security agenda. But I think the international community should also understand the limitation of the Afghan government as well. When the US was in Afghanistan, they had the air power, lots of logistical power. I think at this point of time, if we see strategically, the Afghan government lacks the capacity of air power to strike these terrorist groups. Even the IS.
But they do have arms that were left by the United States.
So that is posing a threat to the regional security. It is the responsibility of the Afghan government to take. They have the capacity to address the issues, the concerns of Pakistan, and Pakistan deserves the right to ask this question. It is I would say it is the larger benefit of Afghan Taliban if they really want international recognition, if they really want international legitimacy of their government, if
they have
really
to put
want
their house into order, basically.
Exactly, and I think we need to understand the embarrassing withdrawal of US. Pakistan had been saying, try to make an orderly withdrawal from Afghanistan. That also contributed, that invited the international, terrorist group to Afghanistan. I think the international global community, the international actors, they need to play a very mature role. The earlier it is, the better it would be. Otherwise, the spillover would not affect Pakistan. We do believe terrorists recognizes no borders. If today it's Pakistan, tomorrow it could be another one else. So in the larger interest of the regional security, the big powers, the major powers, the United States, the Russia, they all need to develop. China is doing.
We've had the Chinese president, the Chinese prime minister, who recently talked to our premier, and of course talked about working together as far as counterterrorism is concerned.
So yes, China, Pakistan, Iran, these all regional actors in South Asia, they have, I mentioned the Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
Of course, that is a very important forum.
That offers a very effective forum to counter the terrorist elements. I think Pakistan need to, assure that zero space is given to these terrorists. The earlier it is, the better it would be for the security of the Pakistan.
That is so true, and I hope that Afghanistan reacts in a positive manner in order for security and stability to come to their country and to ours as well. They need to stop the infiltration of all the elements that they for the moment are not admitting to, but they need to do it in letter and spirit. And implementation, this is something that you really talk about a lot, implementation. So they need to implement such laws or such procedures that prevent all these elements, CTP, Daesh or others to infiltrate into Pakistani territory. I hope that really happens.
And allow me to mention one point. I think Afghanistan need to understand it was Pakistan who facilitated throughout the decades Afghan people through various channels. They are right here, or the million of people they are being hosted right here. Still, we are very open with very good reasons we are helping them. I think they need to understand, they need to act against the terrorist groups who are acting against Pakistan. So that would be in their interest as well, and for the regional security environment as well.
A big question mark on when and how will they do it, but of course Pakistan has the right to ask them, to request them to look inwards as well. This is what Amir Muttaqi Sahab also said. So this is what Afghanistan also needs to do, look inwards and put their house into order. Thank you very much, Sangeen Khan Panezai, to have joined us for this very important topic, and that is the security paradigm of Pakistan and vis-a-vis Afghanistan and the infiltration of such terror outfits such as the TTP into Pakistani territories. Let's come to our last story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns a spy balloon of all things. A Chinese spy balloon has been flying apparently over the United States of America for a couple of days. This has been stated by US officials, and this is just days ahead of a planned official visit of Anthony Blinken, United States Secretary of State, to Beijing. Now, fighter jets have been mobilized, but leaders have advised the US president against shooting the balloon out. What is this balloon? Apparently, it's some kind of a balloon that the US authorities say is Chinese in origin, and balloons apparently of this kind have been used for spying tactics, not just by one country but by many other major players across the world. What is this going to signify as far as the relationship between China and the United States of America that is already tense is concerned? And will the visit of Anthony Blinken to China take place? And if it does, will the the interaction between him and the Chinese leaders also talk about this perpetrated balloon that has been highlighted apparently by the American authorities? The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning has said Beijing was verifying the situation. I would like to quote what she said. She said, "I would like to emphasize that until the facts are clarified, speculation and hype will not be helpful to the proper resolution of the issues." She was saying that to a proper press briefing, as she always does. Well, we will be looking for answers as far as this balloon is concerned, whether it is Chinese in nature, what was the specific purpose for it, only time will tell, or whether Anthony Blinken will eventually go to Beijing under the current circumstances or not, because there is a lot of political pressure on the US leadership as well. This brings us to the end of today's newsroom, ladies and gentlemen. It's the last day of the week, and we'll see you inshallah on Monday with news stories and segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. But before we go, an interesting story that I wanted to share in the last few seconds. Australia is going to remove the British monarch from its currency notes, replacing the late Queen Elizabeth II's image on its $5 note with a design honouring indigenous culture. This was said by the central bank on Thursday. It's a very important thing because the indigenous people in Australia have been highlighting that they need to be given their due rights, and I think this is a good step in the right direction. We'll see you inshallah on Monday. Have a great weekend. Allah Hafiz.